Whether we have much or little, all of us can contribute something to the worldwide work. And then the organization can direct those funds to needy brothers and sisters that we don't even know, just as Paul directed the contributions in the first century.
After I saw another video from jw.org talking about giving money to the organization, I thought, how many times, like just in the last month, have they done this? And I started making a video on it, and I thought, this is kind of just falling into the Department of Redundancy department, and we should do something different. So this time we are going to look at the complete history of Jehovah's Witnesses and donations going back all the way to 1900. Don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Oh my god, I'm trying to watch this intro right now, but where is his beard and his hair? It's giving fuzzy man peach right now. Dislike, unsubscribe, bye! Well, that was just rude. We didn't want her like or her subscription anyway, but if you do like this, whether I have a beard or not, don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's do this thing. Now, as I was editing this video, I did think of something that I would be really curious if you guys could help me out with it, and that is, can anyone out there, usually there's probably around 10 to 20,000 people that watch this video, but of all of us, can anyone think of examples of Watchtower doing something completely philanthropic, and it being something that they didn't already own? So like if they go and fix a Kingdom Hall and then they own the Kingdom Hall, that's not really all that philanthropic. Or, you know, where they're not just using volunteers, even where they're paying for the flights of someone. I know most of the time, at least it's been my experience, that when they send people out to do disaster relief, those people are paying for their flights. And then once they get there, someone in the congregation is allowing them to stay in their house and feeding them. And Watchtower isn't actually doing anything. So I just want to know, all the people out there on YouTube, can you tell me if you know any examples, or tell me if you also have never seen an example of Watchtower actually giving charitably in any meaningful way? So, starting off with the 1900s, the very early days of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, they used to report what they would spend as an organization, and they would list this every year in one of their publications. And what's interesting, after they give the breakdown, they have this little sentence in most of those articles: "The financial showing, dear brethren, is remarkable when it is remembered that no appeals are made for money, and no collections taken up by the pilgrims at any of their meetings, and no private solicitations made by them, or through the columns of the Watchtower." So in the very beginning of the Watchtower Society, they really prided themselves on never taking collections or asking for money in their pages or otherwise. Then you move forward to the 1910s, and we have the curious case of Miracle Wheat. Now, when it comes to Watchtower and donations, this one is very bizarre, and I think I'm going to do a separate video on that entirely, but I'll give you the TLDR on it. There was a guy from Pennsylvania and a guy from Indiana that donated 30 bushels of this Miracle Wheat. It was something you could plant and you would get an incredible amount of yield, therefore get a return on your investment, because it was more expensive than just buying regular wheat. And someone donated this to Watchtower, and then Watchtower sold this and kept, you know, the profits from that, which, you know, they said whenever they gave them the bushels of Miracle Wheat that they should do that. So apparently before there was crypto, there was Miracle Wheat, and Watchtower was at the front and center of this new trade market. Now, after the Miracle Wheat collapse of the 1910s, there was a changing of the guard. C.T. Russell passed away, and Joseph Rutherford took place as president of the Watchtower. And this was the earliest example. I'm not sure if it is the earliest, but it's the earliest that I could find of them talking about the donation box. Voluntary donations were the only kind accepted. The Christian church as a whole today would have been in 100-fold healthier and happier condition if the collection plate had never been invented, and if the humble donation box, accessible but unobtrusive, had always been retained. So Now we have the introduction of the donation box. Now we move into the 1930s, where Watchtower is still publicly releasing their financial statements with a full breakdown of their expenditures. Some of those that I did find a little bit curious were advertising. Apparently, God needs you to pay for advertising. Seems a little bit strange to me. But also, I did find this quote, which was pretty interesting in my opinion, and that was as follows. The society has always followed the rule of contracting no debts, and therefore purchasing nothing necessary to carry on its work, until it is apparent there is some way of paying the bill. For this reason it pays its bills promptly, proceeding upon the scriptural admonition to owe no man anything. Now, I find this a little bit curious just because they still have this sense of frugality. It still seems that they're being honest and disclosing how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, and saying, hey, we're not going to pay for a project with money that we don't have. Now, moving into the 1940s, we did have something that was quite significant, and that was getting rid of a policy that they had had for many decades now, and that was voting by shareholders. So in times past, if you were a member of Watchtower, you could literally buy shares at $10 a share, I think specifically, and you could buy as many as you wanted, and that would give you votes. And then every year at an annual meeting, they would vote on certain things, or different charters, or even the election of particular people in power. So that was kind of interesting to hear. And here's the article from the 1944 Watchtower talking about how they were putting an end to that. It says, hence, at a legally called business meeting of all shareholders, voters of the society on October 2nd, 1944, it was unanimously voted that the society's charter be revised and be brought into full harmony with theocratic rule and truth. This action, or blah, 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 blah. The theocratic spirit of Jehovah will determine the membership, such spirit of the Lord being expressed by representatives of his theocratic organization and its companions throughout the earth. Shareholder voting as based on financial contributions will not affect the matter. So that was kind of a crazy one to hear. I mean, imagine an organization that is allowing the most powerful and rich people to influence the general direction. That sounds awful, doesn't it? The world has never seen something so deplorable, ever. And another thing that happened in the 40s, I know I was trying to do just one thing, but this was one of the earlier examples I can find of basically how Watchtower would go about soliciting for money while also saying it wasn't soliciting for money. So I think it really started in earnest back in the 1940s. So here is a article in a Watchtower back then. It says, the society in harmony with its governing principle mentioned above never solicits money, never takes up a collection, never indulges in the mark of worldly religion, begging. This article is not a solicitation for money, but is merely a reminder of the privilege open to its readers. So this has been established for Watchtower for decades now. We aren't like those worldly religions. We don't beg for money. We just remind people of the great privilege they have of donating money. It's not begging. We swear. Hello, it's Editing Wally here, and I just wanted to make you guys aware that the JWS Online Library is a very good tool and resource for anyone that is looking to do some research about articles and things that Watchtower said in the past, things that might not be on the JW Online Library. So if you'd like to support their work, I do have a link to the PayPal, and maybe you can make their holiday season a little bit cheerier. So we're all in this together. But anyway, back to the normally scheduled program. Now moving into the 1950s, we have this article which I found very funny. So it says, it is very gratifying to see many circuits, companies, and individuals, companies I think back then they were referring to congregations, and individuals are responding to the privilege previously announced of making donations to the society for the purpose of bringing to the 1953 World Assembly our brothers from foreign lands who otherwise would not be able to attend. So this is basically talking about what they refer to now as an international convention. And these things always cracked me up because it's sort of seen by Jehovah's Witnesses as this wonderful, expensive thing that Watchtower is doing for people, and yet it's exactly the opposite of that. So they raise money to buy stadiums in order for all these witnesses to come and gather in beforehand, and then while people are there, at every entrance and at every exit, there's a donation box sitting right there, and they have an accounts report read during these telling people exactly how much this thing costs to operate. And then on top of that, what's really funny is in this article what it says. All persons interested in the New World Society are planning so that, if possible, they will be in New York July 19th to 26, 1953 for the World Assembly. Such persons now prudently begin to save funds for travel to New York. Jehovah blesses the planning efforts of his servants to advance true worship in the earth, and surely individual planning and saving for participation in assemblies of his people meets with his favor. So basically they're like, hey, start saving your money now, so that way you're going to be able to attend this thing, and then after you get done saving your money, so you've given them money so they can have the event, and then you need to start saving money so you can go to the event, and then once you're at the event, they also ask you to donate to help pay for the event. It's my personal opinion, I don't know this intimately, but it's my personal opinion that Watchtower hosts these international conventions just for the sake that they can make a lot of money, whereas the optics for a Jehovah's Witness looks like, oh my goodness, look how much the organization is spending. So it's kind of funny to see these tactics sort of spelled out all the way back in 1953. For reasons completely unknown to me, I completely lost the 1960s portion, but Future Wally is here to fill in all the blanks because I think this is the most remarkable of all of the quotes, perhaps. Yes, but not altogether unique. For that the good news of God's kingdom has this effect on children is also seen from what a 5-year-old Rhodesian, I believe that's modern day Zimbabwe if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong, child wrote the Watchtower Society's branch office at Salisbury. Quote, "Dear brothers, here is my donation to the society for 14 cents that my daddy gave me for sweets. Instead of buying sweets, my mind decided to send it to the society because it will help a lot more than to buy sweets." For 60 years, Watchtower, a billion-dollar American organization, has been begging children, even children in poor countries, to send them money instead of buying themselves a biscuit or a cookie or some ice cream. And to move into the 1970s, we have a quote from Watchtower that ages about as well as the campfire scene from Peter Pan. "Some religious organizations are going to new ends to acquire money. The Coronation of the Blessed Virgin Mary Catholic Church in Buffalo, New York now accepts credit cards!" Not just cash donations. One finance committee member says a church cannot survive on 50-cent donations. Credit card donations are up to $30. Well, my goodness, those greedy Catholics accepting credit cards? Man, we would never do that. We are like our good old cash donations. And then we enter into the 1980s, which this is the construction arc of Watchtower as far as I can see. So in this article, one of them that I chose, they're basically talking about all of the expanse that's happening within the organization. The organization is growing and we have construction projects all over the world, from Australia to the Netherlands to Kenya and Zambia to Japan and Italy. They were going hog wild with building projects, and this became sort of the focus, I think, through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s is, hey, let us expand our real estate portfolio as much as humanly possible. Now let's look at a question box from the 1990s and see how they are pumping the gas a little bit. The question is, should publishers and pioneers feel obligated to contribute to the society's worldwide work each time they obtain literature for field service at the Kingdom Hall? And the answer, they said, no, just according to your ability. However, some publishers have chosen to make their donations at the time they pick up literature supply. They do this because picking up literature serves as a convenient reminder of their privilege and responsibility to support the worldwide work regularly. So now it is a responsibility. It's not just a privilege. It's not just something that you can do if your heart compels you. Now we have the language that this is our responsibility. Now, in the 2000s, this is where we really get into one of the funnier things and something that I remember growing up as a Jehovah's Witness as well. And this is the actual soliciting for donations. Now, there are literally hundreds of examples, so we don't need to really get in the weeds, but Watchtower basically said in their meetings to Jehovah's Witnesses and in their instructions to witnesses about how to present the Watchtower magazine whenever they were going in their door-to-door preaching work, about how to mention the donation arrangement. And in all of those kingdom ministries, there was a little section at the end that said, and you can mention the donation arrangement. So you have people going door to door talking about how these random people can donate money to Watchtower. Actual solicitation, which makes the following comments really funny that happen in the 2010s.
We in no way want to be categorized with other organizations, religious and otherwise, that coerce their supporters to donate. As you know, for over 130 years, this organization has never solicited for funds, and it is certainly not going to start now.
We cannot discount the counsel of Hebrews 13:16. Think of those Macedonians. They went outside of the border of their congregation territory to give financially. All of us, whether we have much or little, all of us can contribute something to the worldwide work.
Ah, yes, the 2010s ushered in a new era for Watchtower, the era of asking for money via video. The JW broadcasting allowed Watchtower leaders to come front and center in a camera and say everything that the Watchtower had been saying for decades, but it hits a little bit different when you have it in this video format. The 2020s, 2010s, they're all pretty much about the same, so at this point I think we should just go to my final thoughts and conclusions. Now, as far as my concluding thoughts go, I would say one thing really became readily apparent to me, and that was they haven't changed all that much. I was shocked when I looked at videos about them telling little kids in poor African countries to donate money to a wealthy real estate company based out of New York. I found that to be really shocking. And when I saw that they have been doing the same thing since the 1960s, I felt that I was really the one that's been bamboozled here. They've been literally doing the exact same thing in begging and asking for money in this sort of tacit way for decades now. And it was really surprising to me that this has gone on. So I was wondering, well, why is it so much more apparent now? And that is obvious. The medium has changed. They've gone from the printed magazine unto the video format. And once you have this video format, it's sort of like right in your face. You can't get away from it. You think, oh man, advertising is so crazy nowadays. And yet I'm sure if you go and read magazines from the 1940s and 50s and 60s, they're chock full of advertisers always trying to sell their new shiny product. And it just maybe seems more apparent now that we're in 2022, almost 2023 now, that everything is right in your face, flashy all of the time. And all Watchtower has done is adapt to the times, and they've started tacitly begging for money now in this way that is not like, we need your money right now, but it's, we have this great privilege and everyone has the opportunity to donate, even if you are a child in a poor country. you can donate to Watchtower, and you will recognize the privilege you have to be able to use your money for Jehovah. And it sort of makes the whole thing about Sophia giving her ice cream money a little less surprising, because they've been doing the same thing for years now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this complete history of the donation arrangement and how Watchtower has been exploiting that in order to build their real estate holdings for the last 120 years. If you're still here, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Now, I did want to balance this video out a little bit here at the end and just say that I did actually come up with a few numbers and statistics about how much Watchtower has been giving charitably over the last 120 years.
Got him! Got him!